Ducktales is a seminal classic, released for the NES in October of 1989. Talking about games like Ducktales can be pretty hard because, as previously mentioned, it has garnered classic status over the years and is often considered one of the absolute best games on the NES. On top of that, it's also become my favorite NES game, if that isn't obvious by the fact that I now have two separate speedruns of the game on my channel. Also, I just want you guys to know that I have no nostalgia bias toward this game, or even the TV show it's based on, as prior to 2023 I'd never actually played this game, and except for the first episode of the reboot, I've never watched the show either. So what is it that makes this game so special, you may be wondering? And to me, personally speaking, it comes down to one core mechanic, and that's the cane pogo stick. By holding down on the D-pad and B, Scrooge McDuck will hold his cane out and just bounce off almost every surface in the game. Trust me, the second you do this once, you'll want to do it more, and the game will be all about trying to just pogo all the time. It's this extremely simple yet fun mechanic that keeps me coming back to this game time and time again. Of course, the pogo cane isn't the only trick up old Scrooge's sleeve. He can also use his cane to knock things like rocks at enemies. It's not the most useful ability, it unfortunately never comes up in any of the boss fights, but it's still a neat addition to the game. Of course, these mechanics would mean very little if the stages themselves weren't fun to traverse, and by golly, the stages in Ducktales are so much fun to explore. The reason why the stages are so much fun to explore is because all throughout them there's treasure to collect, because Uncle Scrooge would not be involved in this unless there was some way to acquire wealth from it. The treasures are also really well hidden throughout the stages. Seriously, I'm pretty confident that there are treasures in this game that I just have no idea about. Heck, the first time I saw the location of the African mines treasure, it was kind of a mind-blowing experience to me, mostly because it meant that beating the African mines stage would take way less time for a speedrun, but still, mind-blowing stuff. The stages in Ducktales can be fairly large, and can feel a bit like a labyrinth at times, so the addition of hidden treasures was a great call to make. It's worth mentioning that these treasures aren't always just for getting more money. There are plenty of one-ups and even a few health extensions in a few of the stages. So just exploring the stages can be very rewarding to do, as you are constantly rewarded for it. Ducktales also has some really good stage variety to it. Sure, there may be only 6 levels, but they're quite varied. For instance, the Amazon level might seem like a standard jungle level seen in every other platformer ever. However, once you start exploring it, you'll notice how you spend the beginning parts mostly underground. Then the final part of the stage lets you explore the Amazon ruins, and these ruins culminate with you fighting a cursed Amazon statue. The game might not have a lot of stages, but it's definitely a perfect example of quality over quantity. Now, before I just keep gushing over how much I like this game, I do want to address a few of my complaints with the game. For starters, while it is fun to collect treasure in the game, it doesn't really do anything besides make the treasure total higher. In a way, it's basically just a point counter, which is fine, but I can't help but feel there could have been a way to integrate it into the game itself. The treasure does affect the ending you get at the end of the game, but I'm gonna be real with you guys. This is an NES game based on a kids TV show from the 80s. Do you really care if you get the true ending or not? I know I don't, so collecting the treasure just feels a bit superficial to me. It's fun to do, but ultimately I'm glad they put in the hidden one-ups and HP extensions, as they make exploring the stages way more rewarding. Another problem I have is that the hit detection in this game can feel a little bit wonky at times. Remember how I said you can pogo off almost any surface in the game? Well, the one surface that isn't pogo friendly for some reason is corners. This might sound a bit odd, like how often do you actually land on the corner or something in this game? And while it doesn't happen super often, it does happen enough for it to become a problem. It's mostly a problem as sometimes you can try to pogo onto a surface to hit an enemy, and instead of hitting the enemy, you end up eating a hit. You might notice this wonky hit detection with some of the enemies as well. Case in point here. Another thing that I dislike in this game is the stage Transylvania. Not because I think it's a bad stage or anything, I think it's fine enough on its own merits. My problem with it is that you have to go back to it 2 separate times in the game. Once in the African Mines level, and then finally you go back to it for the final boss fight with Dracula Duck. I like the revisit during the African Mines level as you're looking for a key to open the gate to the stage. It's something different, and it's the only time in the game when a stage sends you to another stage to complete it. However, reusing the stage for the final boss fight is just so lame to me. Ducktales only has 5 stages, so it's pretty short, and an extra stage could have helped with the length issue. Also, the final fight with Dracula Duck is kinda underwhelming to me. It's not bad, I like that you have to pogo off of his minions to attack him directly. However, it lacks a certain level of impact that a final boss should have. I think what makes the fight feel underwhelming is the fact that it takes place in the same room as the Magica de Spell boss fight. I can't help but feel that it should have at least taken place in a different room in the Transylvania stage. Graphically speaking, Ducktales is fairly good looking for an NES game. It easily puts early releases like Kung Fu and Balloon Fight to shame. I'd say it also holds its own with the later release titles like Mega Man 6 and Little Samson as well. Scrooge's sprite can be pretty dang expressive at times. For instance, in the Himalaya level, if you try to pogo into the snow on the mountain, Scrooge will look like he's begging and crying to get free. Better yet, when Scrooge strikes something with his cane, his eyes just wick out. Ugh, it's so great. I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention DuckTales' soundtrack, as it's often considered one of the best on the NES. Chances are, if you are watching this video, then you've probably at least heard the Moon Stage theme. It's legendary on the system for a reason. I feel like I mention this a lot in my videos, but I'm not a huge music guy, but even before I played this game, I was familiar with the Moon Stage theme. DuckTales doesn't have a lot of music in it. It's really only about 10 full songs and 3 other short loops. What's here, however, is extremely good. If you only know the Moon theme, I highly recommend you at least look up the rest of the soundtrack, especially the African Mines stage theme. Ugh, it's so good, you guys. I've played this game tons of times. Heck, for this review, I probably beat the game at least a dozen times, and I've never gotten tired of hearing any of the songs in the soundtrack. Lastly, I feel the need to mention some of the modern indie games that have been in some way influenced by DuckTales, the 2 most popular of which being Shovel Knight in 2014 and Hollow Knight in 2017. Both of these games have attacks very similar to the pogo stick cane attack from DuckTales, and I feel it's pretty safe to say that they were in at least some way influenced by the attack. DuckTales is one of those rare license-based games that's actually an excellent game. As previously mentioned, upon me playing it for the first time back in 2023, it easily became my favorite NES game, and it's slowly becoming one of my favorite games of all time. I hope with this video I was able to explain why this game is so special to me, and I'm sure to a lot of other retro gamers out there. If the game interests you and you don't have an NES, it's available in the Disney Saturday Afternoon Collection on the PlayStation 4 and 5 and Steam. This collection also contains the sequel game, DuckTales 2, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers 1 and 2, and Tailspin for some ungodly reason. This collection is normally $20, but it goes on sale fairly often. But even at $20, it's a massive steal, honestly speaking, when you consider the quality of DuckTales 1 by itself. The collection is easily worth it. DuckTales also got a remaster back in 2013, a remaster that I feel pretty mixed about, truthfully speaking. As previously mentioned, DuckTales also eventually got a sequel, and while I haven't played it yet, I know I'll cover both at some point in the future on the channel. Heck, both of them are on my Google Doc for future video ideas. So if that interests you, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn the notification bell on so you don't miss when I post next. Also, please like this video down below, and if you have any games you want me to talk about, let me know in the comments down below. Until next time, you guys, peace.